It's meant to be Russia's latest and greatest weapon, a nuclear torpedo submarine that's supposed to give Russia even greater control over the world's waterways by offering an ever-present and hidden threat against Vladimir Putin's enemies. Russia is so confident in its new submarine that it's named the weapons it carries Poseidon, after the Greek god of the sea. But there's a problem with Russia's godlike weapon and the submarine it rides in on. It simply doesn't make any practical sense. Russia's new DOOMSDAY sub is completely useless, making it yet another boondoggle on which Russia has wasted billions of dollars. That's according to United 24 Media, which published a report on November 4 that covered the official unveiling of Russia's brand new Khabarovsk nuclear-powered submarine. That submarine, the outlet says, has been custom designed to carry the Poseidon. It was floated out at the Sevmash Shipyard in Severodvinsk just 3 days before the outlet's report, though this doesn't mean that the sub has entered service. Russia is essentially proving to itself and others that the submarine operates as it's supposed to before it attempts to enter mass production. But there was something strange about the launch ceremony. The Khabarovsk, along with the new weapon that it carries, is supposed to enhance Russia's nuclear force projection to a level not yet seen before. And yet Russia revealed surprisingly little of its new submarine during the official launch. The event showcases the submarine's stern, and even that's been enough for several analysts to start ringing alarm bells about the contradictions between what Russia has been telling us about its new weapons and the reality of what they offer. The odds are that Russia's new submarine is completely useless, and in more ways than one. But before getting into that, it's worth taking a look at what Russia wants the world to believe about the Khabarovsk and the Poseidon weapon that it carries. Starting with the submarine, Newsweek provided the basic details in a November 4 article covering what Russia has claimed its new submarine is capable of doing. It quotes the Russian Defense Ministry, which says that the new sub is intended to perform Navy tasks using modern naval underwater weapons, including robotic devices for various purposes. To do that, Russia has reportedly based the Khabarovsk on its existing Boreas-class submarines, which supposedly gives the new sub the ability to hide unseen under the ocean waves, ready to strike at a moment's notice. The submarine reportedly has a displacement of around 10,000 tons when it surfaces, and that's powered by a nuclear reactor that should give it unlimited range. Supposedly, it's also equipped with several types of weapons. Beyond the Poseidon, the sub should also pay host to anti-ship cruise missiles and torpedoes, which it can use to engage in combat against other naval assets. Outside of that, data is limited. The submarine is believed to be able to travel at speeds of up to 32 knots and is crewed by 100 people. The sub's mission duration falls somewhere between the 90 and 120-day mark. It's also known that the submarine has been in development for at least a decade, as its keel was laid back in July 2014. It will also have a digital radio communication system, an automatic control system, and a PMU lifting mast device equipped with a surveillance radar, military Russia reveals. However, these scant details don't really seem to reveal a submarine that's much better than those that Russia has in its arsenal. The rest of the project is hidden behind a shroud of secrecy, and it appears that Russia wants to keep it that way. What Russia really wants the rest of the world to fear isn't the submarine itself, but the Poseidon weapons that the sub will carry. And boy, does Putin seem to love the Poseidon. On October 29, Reuters revealed that Putin claims that the Poseidon has been tested. Dubbed a super torpedo by the outlet, the weapon is perhaps more accurately described as a submarine-launched drone that acts like a torpedo, only with a much larger range. Reuters says that analysts suspect that the Poseidon will be able to travel for up to 10,000 kilometers, which equates to around 6,200 miles, and it will do that while traveling at speeds of up to 185 kilometers or 114 miles per hour. Hilariously, Putin waxed lyrical about Russia's new weapon while sharing tea and cakes with several Russian veterans of the Ukraine war in Moscow. For the first time, we managed not only to launch it with a launch engine from a carrier submarine, but also to launch the nuclear power unit on which this device passed a certain amount of time, Putin told the soldiers before adding, "There is nothing like this." The Washington Post revealed a few more details about the new weapon, or at least the details that Russia wants us to know about, in a November 1st piece. The drone torpedo is designed to engage in stealthy underwater travel, much like the sub from which it will be launched. And the Khabarovsk is needed because no other Russian submarine can carry the 70-foot-long Poseidon. Powered by a nuclear reactor and capable of carrying a nuclear warhead, the Washington Post says the Poseidon may have a near limitless range that will allow it to traverse entire oceans before it strikes a target. However, there's also a lot that's still unknown about Poseidon, the outlet notes. Quoting Michael B. Peterson, who is the Center for Naval Analyses Russia Military Studies Program's lead research scientist, the Washington Post states, "There are a few unknowns about the Poseidon, including whether the weapon is preloaded with targeting data and whether it uses satellite communications for guidance," Peterson said. "It may also use a wire on the water's surface to receive such information once a target is selected," he said. The same outlet also says that there are rumors of what the Poseidon is supposed to offer as a nuclear weapon. It may not be designed to hit targets on land. Instead, Poseidon may be capable of generating tsunamis that flood Russia's enemies. Putin is happy enough with the weapon that he's even held a ceremony in which he delivered state awards to the developers of Poseidon, CNN reported on November 4. He hailed the weapon, along with another named the Burovestnik, as being of historic significance both for Russia and for the entire 21st century. And though the ceremony may have just been for show, Putin is using it, along with the supposedly successful tests of Poseidon, to try to strike fear into the US. After all, both the Poseidon and Burovestnik have massive ranges. There's only one country that poses a nuclear threat to Russia that Putin might ever intend to hit with these long-range weapons: America. All of this is what Putin wants the world to know, or more accurately, fear about Russia's new submarine and the terrifying nuclear-capable weapon that it carries. The problem is that Putin doesn't exactly have the greatest track record for telling the truth about Russia's military capabilities or the strength of the country's weapons. That's been showcased many times over in Ukraine, as Russia has failed to overcome a country that's far smaller than itself with weapons that, if Russia were to be believed, should have been capable of destroying Ukraine. So, does that mean Russia isn't telling us the full story about the Khabarovsk and the Poseidon? United 24 Media seems to think so, as it reports on a Ukrainian Defense Express article that says that the single snapshot of the Khabarovsk's stern might provide some clues to the submarine being far less useful than Putin claims it to be. For one, there are few of the strange design choices Russia has made with its brand new sub. As mentioned earlier, the Khabarovsk appears to be based on the Bore-class ballistic missile submarines that Russia already has in its fleet. Naval analyst H.I. Sutton confirms that, noting that Russia's new submarine likely has a pump jet propulsion system that mimics the one featured in the Bore-class. However, the Khabarovsk appears to be much shorter than the Bore-class subs, even though it's been custom designed to fit Poseidon drone torpedoes. At 135 meters, Russia's new submarine is 35 meters, or about 114 feet, shorter than the Bore-class. Some reports claim that it's even smaller than that. So what? One might think. A shorter submarine might even be good for Russia, as it makes the Khabarovsk less likely to be detected underwater. While that may or may not be the case, this shorter size is accompanied by Russia's new submarine sitting lower in the water than the one on which it appears to be based. That means it likely has a reduced buoyancy reserve, and that could be a problem for the Khabarovsk. Globe Composite Solutions explains why in an article in which it explains one of the roles that a reservoir buoyancy or ROB plays. ROB is vital from a safety aspect, as it allows the submarine to surface and remain afloat. The higher the ROB, the quicker the sub reaches the surface and the longer it stays there once it does. That quick surfacing ability is needed in cases where the submarine is damaged. A hull breach, for instance, could cause flooding that would force the crew to surface. Hitting objects and experiencing explosions do the same. Plus, if the submarine needs to surface for extended periods, such as when breaking through thick ice, the ROB needs to be high to ensure the sub stays at least partially above the waterline. The Khabarovsk, having a smaller ROB than the Bore class of Russian submarines, is a strange choice, because it makes it look like Russia is sacrificing safety. If the Khabarovsk's crew gets caught up in the type of disaster that afflicted the crew of the cursed submarine back in 2000, the sub's lower ROB could possibly mean the difference between life and death for its crew. Now, potential buoyancy issues aside, there's also a rumored aspect of the Khabarovsk that may not be present. Defense Express also reports that the Khabarovsk may actually lack the missile launch silos it would need to fire anti-ship cruise missiles. Again, the size of the submarine comes into play here. It's already been mentioned that the Poseidon is too big to fit in any other Russian sub. It fits in the Khabarovsk, but it's possible that it may do so because the sub sacrifices the space that other, more traditional weapon systems require. At worst, that could mean the Khabarovsk is equipped with Poseidon nuclear-capable weapons and nothing else. That's fine if the submarine is undetected, but what would its crew do if the sub was confronted by another vessel? Firing a nuke at the other vessel seems crazy, especially given the Poseidon's supposed ability to generate tsunamis. If the Khabarovsk is forced to engage an enemy close to the Russian shore, for instance, the Poseidon would do more damage to Russia than it would to an enemy. There are also question marks about whether the Poseidon would even be accurate to hit a small target below the waves. As for vessels above the waves, the Poseidon is an underwater drone. It doesn't appear capable of doing anything against a ship dropping depth charges or anti-submarine missiles. The Khabarovsk needs to be equipped with anti-ship missiles. There's a possibility that it may not be based on Defense Express's report, and that could severely limit its usability for Russia. Still, this pair of design flaws, strange as they may be, isn't enough to make the Khabarovsk completely useless. What may be is that there seems to be no reason for Russia to have built the submarine in the first place. If what Russia claims about the Poseidon is all true, then there's no need for a submarine that's capable of firing the weapon. It has a predicated range that extends anywhere from around 6,000 miles to unlimited, United 24 Media points out. That range is supposed to come courtesy of the miniature nuclear reactors built into the drone torpedoes, and it shouldn't need a submarine to launch the weapon at all. If that were true, United 24 Media says of Poseidon's reputed range, such weapons could be launched directly from shore facilities without the need for an expensive and specialized submarine. Russia could still hit the eastern and western coastlines of the US with its Poseidon, and an unlimited range would put the rest of the world on notice. So why does the Khabarovsk need to exist at all? Well, there are two possible answers to that question. The first is that it doesn't. Mentioned earlier was that the Khabarovsk has been in development since at least 2014. That suggests Russia has started working on the submarine before a weapon like the Poseidon was even considered possible. Putting aside Russia's supposedly lightning-fast development of the Poseidon for a moment, this suggests that the Khabarovsk may have been originally designed for a different purpose altogether, and has only recently been adapted to fit Russia's new weapon. It's almost like Russia poured millions of dollars into a project that seems to offer no advantages over the Borei-class subs it already has, and it's now trying to justify that expenditure. As for the second answer to the question, it may be the Poseidon is far less useful than Russia claims. Defense Express suggests that Russia may need the Khabarovsk, as limited as it appears to be, because the Poseidon's navigation system and supposed range aren't what they're cracked up to be. Either one being worse than Russia claims presents problems that only a submarine can solve. A shorter range would mean that Russia would need a submarine that can get close enough to its target, and almost none of its other subs fit the bill. And if the Poseidon isn't especially accurate, that would mean Russia risks launching a weapon from its shores that could easily go off target and spark a global crisis because it hits a nation Russia didn't intend to hit. Either way, Russia may have a lose-lose situation on its hands. But Poseidon might have another problem then, potentially not living up to the billing that Putin has given it. And that problem can be expressed via a question. In what situation would Russia ever use this weapon? A nuclear drone torpedo that can supposedly deliver an apocalyptic scenario to any coast that Russia targets sounds like a massive threat on paper. Russia is using this weapon to signal to the US that there's something that America's existing defense capabilities can't intercept and may not be able to detect, the Lansing Institute wrote in late October. Russia is trying to rewrite the rulebook when it comes to the nature and predictability of nuclear deterrence, but that's an issue in its own right. If what Russia says about Poseidon is true, then it's a technically complex weapon that, as Putin claims, is unlike anything that the world has seen. So how is Russia building it? How many components used in Poseidon are made in Western countries that are sanctioning Russia right now, and will surely go harder on those sanctions if Poseidon is revealed to be a real threat? Plus, if Russia is trying to muddy the nuclear doctrine waters, especially when it comes to predictability, it might be creating a rod for its own back. The US might decide that preemptive strikes are on the table when Poseidon is in the water, for instance. And even if a Poseidon launch is successful, what then? A nuclear-capable drone torpedo may devastate American coastlines, but it wouldn't stop the US from responding with its own nukes. What is the point of Poseidon exactly, other than existing as a means for Putin to engage in yet another contest of wills and egos with the US? The odds are that Putin would never dare to use the Poseidon, even if it's everything that Russia's leader says that it is. And if that's the case, that only reinforces the Khabarovsk's uselessness. If all that the submarine carries are Poseidon weapons, then it becomes a target to be taken out as soon as any country detects it. And even a nuclear-powered and nuclear-equipped submarine isn't much use when it appears to have no countermeasures to protect itself against more traditional weapons. And there's another possibility here. The Poseidon itself may be a lie. After all, it's not exactly clear how Russia could be testing a weapon that's supposed to cause nuclear bomb-generated tsunamis without the entire world knowing about it. And, as Dagans reported on November 3rd, the Poseidon project has already been marred by tragedy. The weapon has been in development since 2015, according to some leaked reports. In 2019, the Poseidon was involved in an explosion on board the Losharik submersible that killed 14 of Russia's sailors. Presumably, this was an explosion related to the weapon's propulsion system. But it's still something that suggests that the Poseidon may be nowhere near as close to being ready as Putin claims it to be. Rather than being a real threat, Poseidon may just be another of Russia's propaganda ploys. That's according to the head of Hope for Ukraine, Yuri Boyechko. On November 1st, Boyechko told the Daily Express, "The Poseidon announcement is widely viewed as a propaganda flex aimed at global deterrence and domestic reassurance following new Western sanctions, while military analysis confirms that despite heavy fighting and dangerous infiltration, key Ukrainian supply lines at Pokros remain intact, directly contradicting Moscow's claims of a successful envelopment." So, the Khabarovsk's only weapon may just be a smokescreen, a distraction, a way for Putin to distract the West from the fact that his forces in Ukraine aren't doing what he claims they're doing. Boyechko continues, adding, "The timing of these grand yet unverified pronouncements suggests that the Kremlin is escalating its use of psychological and information warfare to mask the costly realities of the grinding war and preempt international political pressure." So, could that really be the case? If it is, then the Poseidon doesn't really exist, at least in the form that Putin claims it exists. Russia's leader might be making empty threats that are well timed to pull attention away from the Ukraine war. And if Poseidon isn't real, then what's the use of the Khabarovsk? It would just be a submarine that's worse than what Russia has already, and doesn't even have the one weapon that could possibly make it a threat. The combination of Khabarovsk and the Poseidon appears to be yet another attempt by Putin to project a level of power that he simply doesn't have. The same could be said of Russia's recent delivery of weapons to Venezuela. Rather than being a show of force, those deliveries reveal that the empire Putin is attempting to build has crumbled around him, as his puppet regimes are in shambles. Find out more in our video, and remember to subscribe to our trusted channel for more videos covering Russia's latest weapons as well as other major conflicts around the globe.